Good morning, friends. Paul Parker, recording clerk. Part of my job is to take minutes of yearly meeting and try and get the things you've decided to actually happen. And we made a decision together yesterday, which has quite a lot of implications. And we haven't had very long to think about this, although some planning was done for various possible outcomes of this yearly meeting, and we've been drawing on that. But yesterday's minute and the discernment throughout the last few days have provided quite a lot of guidance and some extra things to act on in moving towards the continuing yearly meeting. So there's quite a bit to do, not reopening the decision we took yesterday, but thinking about how we enact it. We need to agree who should do it and make sure they tell us what they've done so that we can check that we're comfortable with it and that it's what we asked for. So in a moment, we have quite a long draft minute for you, but it's probably helpful if I say a bit about it before you hear it, so you know what you're listening out for. So we already heard earlier in the yearly meeting that the timing of this implementation is likely to be 2026. So that will mean that in 2025, yearly meeting will be held on the dates we've already agreed to hold it, which will be in the minute at the end of this yearly meeting. I won't try and remember what they are now. And in 2026, there will be a yearly meeting in May, as usual. The meeting for sufferings will continue to meet during that time as well. And that the first continuing yearly meeting would then be held after the May yearly meeting in 2026. Probably sometime in the summer of 2026, and then move forward on the cycle that we've been discussing. So there's a few things that need to happen before we can get going with that. So I'll talk about a few of those and then suggest, I think, that the clerks read the draft minute and then you can ask questions about that. So first thing is about how we construct the agenda for those meetings, the continuing yearly meeting through the course of the year, the long yearly meeting like this one, and then the shorter ones which will be held in the gap between the big ones. We already have a committee called Yearly Meeting Agenda Committee. You heard from Fred, who's the current clerk of it, on Friday. They are already busy thinking about yearly meeting in 2025 and 2026. And they need to carry on doing that because those yearly meetings are going to happen. And we think it would be quite hard to ask them to take on more work in addition to what they've already got to do. They probably agree with that, I think. But the new arrangement will need an agenda planning process that works quite differently. And so we think we need to create a new body, a new single agenda committee that looks after the agenda for this rolling cycle of 4 meetings a year. And from the minute we made yesterday, it's clear that that body is going to need to think about a number of things before the first continuing yearly meeting can happen. This probably isn't an exhaustive list, but they'll need to think about arrangements for clerking, how the testing and seasoning was the phrase from yesterday's minute. The testing and seasoning of area meeting minutes is going to work. That new agenda committee will receive them, but what do they do with them, and how does that help them to build an agenda for yearly meeting in a way which is transparent? We also asked for someone to think about whether there's a way to retain the use of the name meeting for sufferings. And I know various friends have ideas about that, and we need to do some testing. And we need to think about how the business will flow between the sessions, what's right to bring to a large yearly meeting held over several days, and what can be done at the shorter sessions. And how do we make sure the right amount of time is given to different kinds of business? So we think that new single agenda committee will need to start work early and to do quite a lot of thinking before 2026. So we think we need to put them in place at yearly meeting next year in 2025 so that they've got a head start and can do some of that work before things get going. So that will mean for a while we'll actually have two agenda committees. We'll try and think of ways of distinguishing between them so you know which one you're hearing from. One which will deal with 25 and 26 on the old model, and one which is working on what will happen after that. So when you hear the minute, you'll see it asks for terms of reference to be prepared and names to be found so that the new body can start work after yearly meeting next year. If we had a continuing yearly meeting already, you'd be able to come and be involved in that process. But we don't. So the best thing to do is to ask Meeting for Sufferings, which handles things in the interim between yearly meetings at the moment, to get some of this done. So we'll be asking Meeting for Sufferings to do some work in the interim between now and 2025 to get all this ready for you to consider next year, to agree terms of reference for the new agenda committee, and to appoint some members to it to do that work. And then that new agenda committee will need to report to you in 2026 on how it's getting on with all that, so that you can be sure you're comfortable with how things are going to work. So that was all about getting the agenda ready, planning, working out how that new system, new processes are going to work. The rest of what I'm going to say is much more about nuts and bolts, really. The decision we took yesterday is quite a significant change to our constitution. So we need to do some work on that and prepare some constitutional text to go in various places, including the Book of Discipline. There'll be implications for terms of reference of lots of bodies which currently mention Meeting for Sufferings. And to bring that back so that we can approve it, get it all in place, and make sure by the time we start the new arrangement, it's actually constitutional to do so. Currently, the way that happens is that Meeting for Sufferings has a church government advisory group, and it will ask them to do some work and preparation for that, and Meeting for Sufferings can test what they've been doing. But because we're also in the process of revising the new Book of Discipline, we will need to work closely with the Book of Discipline Revision Committee to make sure that what they plan to put in, whatever replaces Quaker Faith and Practice, aligns with what is in other locations and other constitutional documents. So there's a bit of joining up the dots to be done there in the next year or so. So there's a passage about that in the minute you're about to hear. Then there were some questions about finances. These are rightly for Britain Yearly Meeting trustees. And from the minutes we've had earlier in the yearly meeting, there are three things that they need to think about that have come up from this meeting. One was about making sure the resources are in place to enable the new continuing yearly meeting to be held and to make sure it's well resourced, that we have the staff team needed to deliver it. The second was about bursaries, removing barriers to participation and making sure we're not excluding people from attending yearly meeting on the grounds of cost. And the third was about the costs of ensuring representation from area meetings and other bodies, so that area meetings are not disadvantaged or representation discouraged on the grounds of cost. So those are things we need to ask Britain Yearly Meeting trustees to work on, and I think I can predict that when we meet with Britain Yearly Meeting trustees in September, they will give them straight back to me to come up with a plan and take it back to them later in the year. Another nuts and bolts thing is about the details of how we call yearly meetings and fix the dates for them. Currently, Meeting for Sufferings does this, so it can carry on doing it until it's laid down. And so we'll ask it to fix dates up until 2028. It's worth saying, but we won't minute, that we think at the moment that it's likely there will be a residential yearly meeting in 2027, because we're likely to need to look at the first draft of the new Book of Discipline. But we do need to be sure that the Book of Discipline Revision Committee has got far enough for that to be what actually happens. And we think we'll make that decision later in the autumn this year when we see how they're doing against their plan. At the moment, they're doing pretty well. But it would be annoying to book a university campus and pay a big deposit and then find that they were going to come a year later. So we're just holding on that one, and the minute is, when you hear it, is just vague enough to allow us to be flexible there if we need to be. We think as well that there will be another residential about 3 years later for us to finalise the Book of Discipline, so that you get a chance to look at it, some time in your local and area meetings to have a really good read of it and think about it and discern whether there are issues that need further work, bit of time to do the further work, and then it will come back to you for yearly meeting to approve it, because nobody else can. So we just need to make sure that we've got the ability to fix the dates for yearly meetings so that all those things can happen when we're sure about the process. And you heard from the Grimm group in their introduction that they felt that residential yearly meetings should be called when the business needs one, and here is an example of how that would look. And then finally, you asked for a review, and we've had a bit of a think overnight about the timing for that, because we have to fit it around that pattern of meetings I've just described as well, so that we have a proper experience of how the new arrangement will work before we try and review it. So we think that review needs to happen no later than 5 years from the date of the first continuing yearly meeting. That gives time for lots of things to bed in and fits around that timetable of the revision committee and gatherings. But of course, if things are not working earlier, and we can see that, then we can look at them. Probably when the new agenda committee reports to you, which they'll do every year from 2026. I think, but we haven't had long, that covers all the things you asked for in your minute yesterday. They've all been given to somebody to think about, and we have a mechanism for you to hear back. What we haven't done is to go back through all the recommendations from, I think, 6 Grimm reports and 37 sets of minutes from their committee meetings. That really is how many times they've met, friends. But we will do that, and we'll bring any loose ends to Meeting for Sufferings in October, make sure we have everything covered. And after that, we're expecting, and I'm sure the group is hoping, that Meeting for Sufferings will lay them down. I think that's all I need to say at the moment.